we have the phrase doubting Thomas to mean someone who lacks faith and hope. And yet somehow when I read the story of Thomas in John's Gospel, I wonder if I would have behaved any differently were I in his sandals. For Thomas is devastated. He's probably feeling very guilty. He feels complete shame for how he has let his friend down. He knows all too well what a crucifixion is like and its sheer brutality. All of his hope has been cruelly snuffed out. He needs the chance to grieve, to wallow. His world has fallen apart. He just needs that time to process it all so that he can then try and find some strength to carry on. When we go through difficult times in our life, it can be hard to see any future, where nothing seems to be a good option, where everything just seems to be a bit, well, crappy. So the first time that Jesus appears to the disciples, Thomas is not there. We don't know why. They're all locked away for fear of their lives whilst he is out, risking his life. He does not know that there is good news, hope, that the resurrection is a reality. In those moments of life where we experience grief, it really doesn't help when those around us remain resolutely cheerful, or worse still, where they try to tell us things like, "Oh, pull yourself together, you will get over it," or something along the lines of, "You will find out the purpose of all of this in the end, and what doesn't kill you will only make you feel stronger." Those are the people you invariably want to smack in the mouth before going back to the comfort of your misery, isolation and sorrow. But Thomas thinks that his friends have done something even worse than that. He thinks they are playing a joke with him, that they are ridiculing his grief. So the disciples tell him the good news. All he hopes for is possible. His friend is no longer dead, and they have seen him. There are times when to remove hope is the cruelest of things. It's a technique of torture. But there are times when giving people a false sense of hope can also be extremely cruel. Thomas thinks his friends are winding him up. The last thing he needs is them to tell him what he wants to hear the most. His grief is complete, and they, quite frankly, are not helping. There are times in life where we prepare for the tough times by remaining pessimistic. Hope feels almost too much to bear. But if you allow despair to triumph, then where do you go from there on in? Too often, we have a false notion of what faith is. We assume that faith is some kind of a power, or that it is about getting to a state of certainty, of being comfortable in our own skin, of being completely okay with God. But I have a very strong hunch that that is the opposite of what faith really is. Faith is about being realistic, of recognising the difficulty of the situation and yet determining to keep struggling through. The opposite of faith is not doubt, but rather certainty. Faith is about living with the doubts, the questions, the pain and the fear, and that sometimes it is just simply seeking the strength to make it through to the end of the day. Faith is about the smallest of lights, even in the greatest of darkness. Thomas needs his friends to be that light for him, to talk through his grief, his fear and his isolation. He needs to hear words of hope so that eventually he can rediscover life and joy. And it is only when he is confronted by the risen Lord that he is able to finally utter those words, "My Lord and my God." So this coming week, if you find yourself succumbing to fear or despair, please reach out to those around you who might be willing to share with you and help you know that you are not alone. But also this week, think of those who you are concerned for, those who might be finding life tough, and demonstrate to them God's love by deed and by word, by reaching out to them. Hope, even amongst the toughest of times. That is faith, and not doubt.